Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the #1 resource for actors and talent seekers. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage, and I'm here to guide you through every aspect of the entertainment industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. These intimate, inspirational conversations with today's most award-worthy film, television, and theater artists provide you, dear listener, advice on how to live the creative life, personal stories of success and failure alike, and maybe, just maybe, a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope.
It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And for some people, it is a sprint, and you kind of have to keep your eyes on your own paper, and that's something I remind myself of all the time. I've, had moderate success, and then sometimes I'm like, well, why is this person getting this? And I'm like, because that's what they were meant to get, and that wasn't for me.
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Hello, 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 and welcome. Do we have a great show for you listeners today? Today's guest is the hilarious comedian Nicole Byer, who has dominated, I'm going to go ahead and say dominated, enough areas of the industry to have a lot of advice to offer. Anyone who's looking to break into the world of comedy, be it stand-up comedy, scripted comedy, sketch, improv, but also she's an actor, writer, she's guested on a ton of TV shows, and she is a host. And I'm so excited to have her today because she is the host of the hilarious Netflix show Nailed It. If you've seen it, it's a very popular Netflix baking show featuring contestants who are maybe not the best at baking. And partially thanks to Nicole and her brilliant work as host, the show is never making fun of those people who are not very good at baking. So I asked her a little bit about that. I asked her about her advice for anyone who's coming up in the industry. She had fabulous things to say about how to ask for the pay that you as an artist deserve and how to establish, especially early in your career, what that pay is. But this is also exciting. It's so exciting to feature Nicole right now because she is hosting the Creative Arts Emmy Awards this year. In 2020, for those who don't know, the Creative Arts Emmy Awards, they usually happen the weekend before the big primetime Emmy ceremony. They honor the quote-unquote below-the-line categories, the technical stuff, the set production, makeup, the guest acting categories are there as well. I'm looking at an article on Backstage.com, maybe you've heard of it, about the changes that have happened to the Emmys this year. Of course, the Emmys 2020 has gone through a couple of changes. The primetime Emmy ceremony is still happening September 20th, Sunday. So excited. We're all getting ready for it here at Backstage. But the Creative Arts ceremony this year, it will actually take place from the 14th to the 19th, breaking down over various categories. There's reality and nonfiction, and then there's variety, and then there's scripted. Nicole Byer is hosting all of this. And the Creative Arts Emmy ceremony is going to be broadcasted on FXX on September 19th, which is the Saturday before the Emmys. So it's all very exciting. The other reason it's exciting to have Nicole today is because for her work on Netflix, she is nominated in the category of Outstanding Reality Host. She is the first ever Black woman to be nominated solo in this category, which is absurd. And as she jokes about in this interview, she is nominated alongside some real heavyweights like the cast of Queer Eye and RuPaul, the host of RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul has won this award in this category the last several years, so Nicole was joking that she doesn't stand a chance. But hey, you never know. You never know. And I'm such a fan of Nicole, and I'm really rooting for her. Speaking of Emmys, over on Backstage.com, I'm looking at this really fabulous feature that the staff put together. We each picked our favorite Emmy-worthy moment of the 2020 TV season. We picked apart a tiny snapshot of why shows like Dead to Me is mentioned here, Euphoria, The Mandalorian, Schitt's Creek, Unbelievable. These are shows that we wanted to pinpoint one example of how the writing, acting, directing all came together. We will link to that in today's episode. Check out Backstage.com. And now strap in for this lovely, I believe, extra long episode with Nicole Byer. Let's take a quick break and then get to it.
Hello, this is Jamie, the producer of the podcast, and I just want to take some time to tell you about the sister podcast to In the Envelope, which is VO School. This is a podcast that I produce and host, and it is devoted entirely to voiceover. So if you're looking to get into the voiceover industry, you should check it out. That's VO School, found on iTunes, Stitcher, all the usual places, and it's hosted by me. Each episode covers a different subject, and we go through the business, the craft, the marketing, the blood, sweat and tears that is creating a voiceover career. So check us out, the VO School podcast, available now.
Nicole Byer just made history as the first ever Black woman nominated for the Emmy Award for Outstanding Host of a Reality Program for her hilarious work on the Netflix Bake Off, Nailed It. Nicole trained at the Upright Citizens Brigade and broke through on MTV's Girl Code and began pounding the pavement as an actor on Pursuit of Sexiness, loosely Exactly Nicole, and plenty of animated TV, a writer, including for her book, #VeryFat, #VeryBrave, and a prolific podcaster, from Best Friends to Newcomers to Why Won't You Date Me? Here is the phenomenally funny Nicole Byer.
Jack, you're recording now?
I am recording now.
And Nicole, you're recording?
I'm so excited.
I am.
Nicole, hi. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to talk to a podcaster. Like, I know that your audio is going to be...
Yes, it will be good. I've got a microphone and everything.
Good. You're going to sound much better than me. You're literally you're signed on here as Whoopi Goldberg, and the picture that pops up is Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost.
Yeah, keep everyone on their toes guessing.
Nicole Byer, I am such a big fan of yours. And
thank you.
I could not be more thrilled to be talking to you, and especially right now. Congratulations on your Emmy nomination.
Thank you.
And the fact that you are hosting the Creative Arts Emmys.
Yes, it's very exciting. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought you would have time
it.
to do a podcast? I'm amazed that you, thank you so much for taking the time, really.
Oh, yes, of course.
Are you familiar with Backstage at all?
Yeah, it's where I would find auditions to go to.
Yeah.
And when I lived in New York, I would sift through Backstage. There was a lot of musical auditions that I was not right for.
Sure.
But sometimes you go and you're bad.
For the experience? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So it was mostly, was it theater stuff, musical stuff?
Yeah, it was a lot of theater because when I was living in New York, I very much thought I was going to be on Broadway and be in musicals. Yeah. But if you cannot sing, that's where the issue lies.
Well, I still think you could still be on Broadway. You could still steal the show somehow.
Yes, I could do a play of sorts or be in a musical where there's one character named Aunt Fran who doesn't sing. I don't know.
No, totally. The character role that doesn't really sing, that's a thing in some musicals. Yeah. Or a one-woman show like Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'd have to write it.
You have to write it. I understand she was she was one of the initial inspirations for you.
Yeah, I do love Whoopi. I saw the revival of Whoopi. I think it was 2008, maybe 2007-ish. And I saw it and I was just like, it was one of those things where like I think it was at the Lyceum Theater. So it's like, it's a big Broadway theater. And it was sold out. It was filled with people laughing. And then at times you could hear like a pin drop. And she just made you like go through all of the emotions in the hour and a half or hour 45 the show was. And that was very inspiring that it's like not all comedy has to be like ha ha ha, but like it could be like ha ha ha, oh, ha 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 ha. There's like ebbs and flows to comedy, and I really loved that.
Totally. That's a great philosophy about comedy. You want a ha ha ha, oh.
Yeah.
You can get more, is it about educating people? I guess you're educating people sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't think all comedy has to be like that. I think it's just like when people are like, there's one type of comedy and it's all ha-has. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't think so. Some comedy does make you think. Some comedy is just like stupid. Like I love doing stupid stuff where people are like, man, that was dumb. So it's, I like to do a lot of different things.
Yeah. And I think we need all types of comedy in maybe in times of crisis. How's your 2020 going?
Oh, 2020 has been one of my favorite years. Nothing has gone wrong. I think everything is perfect. Everyone is thriving. Unemployment is like so at an all-time low. Our president, the morale from him is just beautiful. He has brought everybody together. And, and the word divisive doesn't exist this year. I love it.
No systemic issues.
2020 has been interesting. It's to say the least.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I don't know, do you feel also that there are successes? There are high points, of course, in a year like this. There's still good stuff happening. Like your Emmy nomination or whatever.
Yes, it is but
it's hard
is
to
cool
reconcile.
To like have, great things happen, but it's also insane to be like, oh, I'm celebrating while some people are being evicted from their homes and our government's doing nothing to help them. It's weird to celebrate when it's like, oh, people were given a $1,200 check one time, an extra $100 a week for unemployment. And it's like, it's crazy. It's really crazy to be like celebrating something cool and like trying to write comedy when it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to write comedy, but like maybe a couple people who want to come to this outdoor show can't come because they don't have a fucking job. So it's just, it's really weird to like live in this time and try to be joyful when you think about other things. Yeah.
And I'm really finding the value of entertainment, of like you said, even the stupid comedy that like, even if it's just an hour where I'm taken out of it, that's kind of healing, honestly. It's helpful for the psyche, I feel like.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that's the beauty of Nailed It. It is like a half hour where you can like zone out, watch people try their hardest, and it's still the silliest thing you've ever seen.
Completely.
I think it's like one of those shows that it's nice. It's a full-blown escapism where you can actually like put yourself in it and be like, I think I could do that. And you watch it, and you're like, why would you do that? It's like it's fun. It's a fun thing to like really talk to your screen at.
Talk to your screen at, totally. And the premise of Nailed It, I mean, I imagine there are no listeners who have never heard of it, but like Nailed It on paper, it seems like it almost seems kind of mean, that it could be mean-spirited. And it's so never that. Is there anything about your job as host to kind of establish that tone?
I think yes. Like it's a lot of reading the room. So like in the first season, nobody knew what the show was. Right. So of course when they made these things, they would be like, ha ha, isn't this wild? And you'd be like, yes, it is wild. And then after the show aired, like we had contestants who actually, I think the first and second season, I think the second season was shot before anything aired, I believe. I'm not sure. I don't know the timeline. I'm not a chemist. I can't remember things. But I just like remember the tone changing a little bit with people being like, I actually tried my hardest. I thought I could do better. I'm a little sad that it didn't go the way I planned for it to go. So it's a little bit of like, okay, this person's face is telling me if I tee-hee-hee, they may start boo-hoo-hooing. So it's finding the balance, which sometimes is hard. But I think I do a pretty good job of tonally reading the room. And Jacques also does like a pretty good job of like being like, okay, this person looks really, really sad. But like, we're pretty honest, like with the taste of it, because like that's you can't like sugarcoat the taste. You could be like, oh, well, you tried this. This little figurine has 2 legs and that is a win. But it's like, oh boy, this tasted like, I don't know, snow that had been left out and re-frozen. It's very gross. I hate this. Like, that's like something they could be like, well, I tasted it too. And yes, it's very bad.
You don't want to lie, but you do want to be sensitive when you need to be.
Yeah, there's a way to give constructive criticism without destroying someone's whole self-worth and self-being. And I think people confuse constructive criticism with just straight up criticism.
Sure. Sure.
It's like in a writer's room when you're like, I don't like that joke. It's like, okay, well, what joke do you have to replace it? I don't know. Well, that wasn't helpful.
Right.
If you don't like the joke, you kind of have to have a backup joke to be like, well, what about this? Oh, this might be even worse, but like, what about this? That's being helpful. And Jacques is helpful. He's like, well, maybe next time, instead of, putting your cakes in the tin in the blast chiller, you take them out. And people are always like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that he says it literally every episode and people are still like, oh.
Because at this point, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I do feel like they all emerge better bakers for the most part.
I think so. Yeah. I think there's usually like a pretty huge step up from the first challenge to the second challenge.
When the bar is pretty low, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about, on this podcast, we feature a lot of actors and a lot of writers as well, and a lot of people in the comedy world. Is hosting a totally different bag? Like, first of all, how did you get the gig on Nailed It?
I was very lucky. A lot of people, I mean, like you go to an audition, you go to the callback, you do a test, a chemistry read. Sometimes you go back like 5-6 times because they can't figure out who they actually want to fit with the person they've already cast. I was really, really lucky that I went to a meeting. I was shown a concept sheet. And again, I don't know if I was their top choice, their third choice, their eighth choice. I don't know who passed on this before they got to me. But it was like, we would like you to do this. We are greenlit for a season. Are you in or are you out? And I was like, I think I'm in. I mean, Netflix is such a huge platform. It feels silly to say no, especially when they were like, we don't know what the show tonally is. And I was like, ooh, this might be like a Girl Code situation where I was on a show that I was not censored really. Yeah. I said whatever I wanted and things made the edit that I was like, oh, I can't believe this is going to be on television.
Right.
But yeah, when we started shooting, it was very much like, oh, Nicole gets to do what Nicole wants to do. And it was like fun and free. And then like a lot of the funny stuff that they use is just stuff from like, because we watched The Bakers for like an hour and a half. So it's like, I don't know, I have ADD. Also, I can't just sit and watch someone bake for an hour and a half. So a lot of like silly things come from that.
Totally. Would you say are you being 100% yourself, or is there an element of playing a character? Like, where on that scale are you?
I mean, I'm not as, it's a fine line. I don't think I'm playing a character per se.
Yeah.
But I do, let's see. I don't know. I talk weird. Every time I do ADR, I'm like, is that the way I speak? It's very strange. So sometimes I'll do like different inflections, but that's like because I don't want it to get stale. I like to play with words. I like to, do interesting line reads. I was talking to one of our guest judges and I was talking about Lord of the Rings and I was like, that scene where Sam goes, potato. I was like, I feel like him saying potato like that is a full conceit of my hosting. It's very wild. But then like I do that with my friends to like make them laugh. So yeah, it like, I'm not like that all the time. If I had that much energy all the time, I would die every night. I would just pass right away. I would be constantly so tired. So I think it's like a mixture of like, oh, I am on and now I'm off,
Yeah. It's heightened. Yeah.
Yeah. Slightly heightened.
Yeah. And the thing about the uncensored idea, is it the exception to the rule? Like, was your instinct about the idea that you could be uncensored, is that just because it's often true that the crazier you go, the more it's going to get cut from something?
Well, I mean, I'm like a pretty raunchy comic, allegedly. Yeah. I don't think I am, but people say I am. So
it depends on how sex positive you are, I think.
Yeah. And it's funny that like, if you talk about sex, people are like, oh my God, how scandalous. And I'm like, I don't know. You got here through it. Yeah. Your mommy and whoever were doing it.
Yeah.
So I guess they like, it didn't go very blue in the edits, I think, to make it more accessible for people because like not only adults watch it, but like kids watch it. So, just taping, I'm not restricted, but then in the edit, sometimes they pare it down to make it more universally, like available for people to watch.
Mm-hmm. Now, what can you tell us about the Creative Arts Emmys? What do you know about it so far?
I know that it's 5 nights.
Yeah.
I know that I am hosting for 5 nights. I'm going to be wearing outfits and probably speaking to prompter. And it's going to air and then people will watch it.
Are you going to a theater? Do you record it right there in your home?
I do not think I'm recording it in my home. I believe I'm going to a location with very few people who will stand far away from me.
Okay. Yeah.
What a world we live in.
What a world. Yeah. That's crazy. I think we're going to air this just before all of this happens. And then the ceremony happens. And the ceremony is going to be 100% virtual also.
Yeah. The Zoomies.
Oh, yeah. Sad. I guess sad.
It is sad. It does suck. I was talking to my friend Darcy Carden, who was also nominated for her work on The Good Place.
Friend of the podcast. Yeah.
I love Darcy. We've been improvising together for, 6 years, something like that. We came up together in New York, or she started a little bit before me. So I would watch her on Mod Night and whatnot. And then when I got put on teams, whatever. But I was like, I'm depressed that I don't get to see you on the carpet wearing a stunning gown, because this is such a milestone in her career.
Oh, yeah.
And then also she's stunning and she wears clothes so well. I texted her, I was like, Nicole, I'm so sad I can't see you in a dress because you wear dresses so well. And I was like, what a weird compliment. She was like, I get it. But yeah, and then Rami, I came up with him in New York, so it'd be cool to see him. It's just cool. A lot of people that I had been working with and around for so long are being honored. And it just sucks that we can't celebrate in person because it is such a celebration and it's fun. But I think for the next couple of years, this might be our new norm, which is a bummer. But, things happen when you don't inform the people until it's in full swing. Things happen when you make interesting choices. It's so funny because Ebola was a plague or a pandemic, and it didn't hit us hard because I think other choices were made. This isn't a political podcast.
It is not. But I am so down to go there. I mean, choices were made is a great way of putting it, actually.
It's just hard not to think about it. It's crazy. We're living in the wildest time.
The actual wildest time. Timeline. Yes. It's just, And it's crazy to be covering awards. It's honestly crazy that the Emmys are still happening. And again, how cool that you and your friends and the people you came up with are nominated. That's so awesome. Was this ever the dream? Talk to me about the early days. Did you ever dream of getting an Emmy nomination, of being in this position?
Yes, I've dreamt about awards when I was a wee little girl in New Jersey. I would late at night. I'm a real night owl, and I have ADD, so my brain is just going at night because there's nothing else happening. So I feel the steadiness and the peace of the night, and I'm ooh, my brain can think. So when I was little, I used to put on dresses and heels and pretend to be on late night shows and interview myself. And then I would also pretend to win an award and cry in my bed while holding a hanger and being I just want to thank everybody for thinking I was good. So yeah, winning an award would be a dream come true. I think anybody who says otherwise is lying to you. Because it's such and whenever people are just being nominated is an honor, that's not a lie, because it is. It's very cool to be nominated with other cool people.
RuPaul?
Yes. Who I will surely lose to. And that's fully fine. Well, that is fully fine. I've had friends who vote for stuff, send me a little video of them voting for me, and I always respond with, a vote for me is a vote for Jill Stein in 2016. It doesn't.
It's gonna be Ru.
Matter. It's gonna be RuPaul, and it's fully fine. Ru is legend. She's a living legend. The show is a cultural phenomenon. I love the show.
You do.
So I've been on it. It's just exciting, to be nominated with the Queer Eye Boys. They're a global phenomenon. Yes. It's cool. It's really, really cool.
It's so cool. So, okay, podcasting.
Yes.
I knew you did a lot of podcasts, but then I looked at the full list, including the podcasts you've guested on. It just seems like a full-time job.
It is a little bit. I mean, I had a really great system when life was normal. So I would record them on weekends. So I would fly back from, I'd be gone I was gone maybe like 30, maybe 40 weeks out of the year last year touring. But I would like land on a Saturday or Sunday. I record 3 episodes.
Wow.
Of 3 episodes. Like I just worked a lot. Like I worked maybe like 7 days a week. That's a lot of the time. It is a lot. And I like being busy. I like working. I like juggling things. I like being tired at night. I like trying to think of jokes. I like that. This whole pandemic has been hard.
Yeah, totally. Is it the same thing as I guess it is hosting. It's literally, you're often hosting the podcast. Is it the same thing of turning yourself on when you're like recording?
Yes and no. I mean, all performances for me is like turning myself on. I don't think anyone wants to hear me be like, oh boy, I just got off a plane and I'm so tired. So tell me about your love life. It's like, well, I have to, if I make it fun for me, hopefully it's fun for you to listen to.
Mm-hmm. How did you initially get into like, why podcasting?
Well, my friend John Gabris, who had his podcast, I think maybe his second one, I don't remember, but we were like at an airport at like 7 a.m. or something. And then he was like, why don't you have a podcast? And I was like, because I don't listen to them. I don't know. I don't want to do it. And he was like, I think you should do one because like people really listen to podcasts. And I think it would help you with your like stand-up numbers and stuff. I think it's like a good way to like get like reach more people. And I was like, look, I don't even know what I would do it about. He was like, I don't know, do it about like love and like fucking people. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, talk to HeadGum. That's where the company or the production company he was at, or the podcasting company. I don't even know what to call them. So I just like wrote an email and I was like, this, and they were like, okay, let's record an episode. And I was like, oh, this? Okay. And then I did it. And then I was like, oh, this is actually not as hard as I thought it was.
Okay.
Because my understanding was like, podcasts were like improv podcasts, and I'm not good at improv podcasts. So I I'm very bad at them. I'm a very visual person. And when people are just sitting being like, I'm Susie Q and I play basketball, I'm like, what the fuck? I like watching people do object work and whatnot. So I was like, oh, I could just talk. I can talk. That's fun.
Yeah.
So then that's how I Want You Date Me was born.
Amazing. Which is just so fabulous and so great. It's so great. And also my family, we just started rewatching Lord of the Rings. So it's really fun that you're doing with Lauren Lapkus, the first time watches of Lord of the Rings movies.
They are not for me.
Okay.
But when you talk to someone about it, I feel like I'm being gaslit every time we record because I'm like, yuck. And then by the end, I'm like, it wasn't so bad.
Good. Yeah. So the podcasting, that's the thing. Like it sort of helps you, right? Like it's therapeutic to talk about your love life, and it expands your horizons to talk to people who are fans of stuff.
Yeah, I will say it is nice to talk to someone new every week on Why Won't You Date Me. It's nice to talk to Sasheer we bank episodes too, so it's nice to talk to Sasheer as often as I get to. But then also we talk when we're not podcasting. Talking to Lauren's really great. I love Lauren. She's so easy to work with, and she's so effortlessly funny. And it's been a joy to like get to know her better during this period. And then I have a 90 Day Fiance podcast with my friend Marcy. It's on Patreon. The reason why it's on Patreon is because we're not at a network and there's no ads. So we make the money via the Patreon instead of ads. Some people really don't understand the breakdown of like charging money per month as opposed to a free podcast. So I love 90 Day Fiance. It's the wildest show on television. I truly love it more than anything. It is such a treat. And then I co-host another with Manu Agapian called Drag Her, where we talk about Drag Race.
Yes.
I like flit in and out of that one when life is normal and I'm touring, but since I've been home, I've been doing it.
Right. And that's the thing with podcasting. It lends itself well to, you can pick it back up, you can drop it.
Yeah.
It's sporadic. It's as you're able to schedule it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's however much you want. You can like skip weeks. So like Newcomers in between our like seasons, we skipped a couple weeks to be like, we just need a break from watching the longest movies that have been made in American history. Yes. Every Star Wars movie was like literally 2 hours minimum. And then the Lord of the Rings movies are like 3 hours. And then there's like extended cuts. And I was like, who would ever? And there's some loyalists who are like, I would never watch a theatrical version of that. And I'm like, okay, well, you have a lot of time.
and as do we all. Like that podcast is really perfect for the times. So we're all about advice on this podcast. what, in terms of podcasting, let's say somebody wants to get into it. I mean, maybe your advice is don't get into podcasting.
But I don't know. I think my advice is to get into it. There's something for everybody. Podcasting is pretty niche. Like Lauren and I are literally watching nerd stuff. So like, someone phrased it very perfectly. One of our reviews was like, I never thought I'd get enjoyment over being angry at two women talking about something I love and getting it all wrong and not being able to correct them. And I was like, I mean, yeah, that's a thing for somebody. I just like relationship podcasts. That's for somebody. Like maybe you love Sweet Valley High and you want to do a Sweet Valley High podcast. Sure. There's a ton of people out there who love the Sweet Valley High books and would love to like scour them on eBay or whatever to find them and read them along with you. So I say just do it. And like if you tweet it enough, like somebody will find it. Like I said it a lot on like my podcast with Marcy, but I was like, we started with nobody and now we have a bunch of people who listen. And she was like, yes, Nicole, everybody starts at 0. And I'm like, yes, okay.
Right.
But it's like a good thing to remember. Like everybody starts at 0. You know, I've done shows to 3 people and some of those shows have been the best shows of my life. So like you got to start somewhere.
Well, and there is a ton of overlap between the comedy world and the podcasting world. So you're also... Your friend told you to get into it partly because it would help your act, right? And it's helping you develop yourself as a comedian, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, my manager, who I love so much, Joel, he'll like listen to my podcast and he'll go, Nicole, there's a bit here for you to expand. Okay. And I was like, what? And one of my favorite bits that I do now is something that he pulled from the podcast. And then I think it was The Virgil. I was doing a show there. And I like said the premise and then improvised the punchlines and like the twists and the jokes. And then I was like, oh my God, yes. Now I have like a new 5-minute bit just based on someone listening to it and being like, this is a good bit. There's a good premise. So I'm like forever grateful that he like actually listens to it. Cause I had another manager who I was like, will you listen to it? I think it's good and people like it. And he's like, I'll get to it. And guess what? He never did. But guess what? We don't work together no more. Oh.
There you go. There's more advice too. Work with managers who want to like.
Yeah, I mean, working with somebody who believes in me like wholeheartedly and fully has been like so great. Yeah, he's really wonderful. I love him so much.
That should be essential, but it's not always the case.
Well, it's like any other job where you're like, I don't think my boss likes me, and it's like honestly, if you feel that way, they probably don't, or like they do and they don't give a shit about you. But it's nice to work with people who give a shit. Like my whole team's really great. I really like them.
Yeah. So is that like, what's the piece of advice for when people ask you for advice in the comedy world, like how to become a success in comedy? What do you tend to say?
I mean, my whole comedy journey is not like anybody else's. It's, and I think very few people understand, like have an understanding of like what I did to get to where I am. Cause it was a weird journey, but like for most people, you go to open mic nights. And you go until somebody is like willing to book you on a show. And then once you get booked on a show, you kind of have to prove yourself with every booking. So like, just like getting back up and like when you bomb, just going back again night after night, you have to, because I've told jokes that work the first 3 times I've told them, 4th, 5th, 6th, 89th time, they don't work. But then the 90th time it works again. And you're like, I don't know what I did different. And it's like, maybe just the inflection on a word changed. So like, it's a process, it's a journey, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And for some people, it is a sprint. And you kind of have to like keep your eyes on your own paper. And that's something I remind myself of all the time. Like I've, had moderate success. And then sometimes I'm like, well, why is this person getting this? And I'm like, because that's what they were meant to get. And that wasn't for me. Oh. And that's like a hard thing to remember, but it's something you have to continually tell yourself that not everything is for you.
Yes. It's a relearning. You got to relearn that lesson. Yeah. Compare and despair is what it's been. Somebody on this podcast called it that before of like.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. That compare and despair. Cause that's all like, that's kind of what social media is. You look around, you're like, I can't believe this person has this and this and that. And it's like, you don't actually know what they have. You don't know if that person's miserable inside. Like focus on yourself and like really do things that make yourself happy. And I think that's an important thing. Cause that was like something I lost in like the last couple of years with just like going. I wasn't doing anything that was like genuinely making me happy on a week to week basis. But then I found pole dancing and that made me super happy. So yeah, like I'm thankful that I found that. Yeah.
Follow your bliss, and that's true for life and in career.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow your bliss, but also like put in the work.
Oh, yeah. And especially I feel like for comedy, it is like you're saying, I love this idea that it's a marathon and it requires little tinkers as you go and as you bomb too. You're going to bomb.
Yeah. You're going to bomb. And it's like to get to mile 1, it might take 3 years. But at mile 1 might be like a really cool job that you didn't think you were going to get. And then maybe getting to mile 2 takes 3 days and you get this other job that you're like, oh my God. And then mile 4 is like another 3 years. Like you just have to like really understand that like it's a longevity. It's like, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. I don't think I ever really plan to retire. I hope to like be doing comedy and acting until I'm in a bed and almost dead. And I'm like, let me just get one more take because I love it. Like I love it so much. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't an actor or performer. I don't know. Maybe a mechanic. That's what I wanted to be when I was
a mechanic.
Little. Yeah, but I had no idea how to like get into that. I love cars.
Oh, you love cars. Oh, interesting. Well, you're sort of like a joke mechanic.
Yeah, you tinker around with the joke until it runs smoothly on the highway.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned this. You had more of a strange, maybe circuitous journey. Did you? In this journey, is there anything akin to like a big break? Were there big breaks? Or is it really just incremental?
No, I think my big break was Girl Code. That's what a lot of people knew me from. I was doing improv and sketch at UCB in New York. I had moved out here to do the CBS Diversity Showcase, which is a showcase where casting directors get to see some diverse people to make their shows more inclusive. And after that, like almost immediately after performing in that showcase, I had auditioned for Girl Code months before I moved to LA. And then I found out I got that job and I was like, okay, great. So then they flew me back and forth to New York to shoot because there's no green screens in LA. And I don't understand why I had to fly back and forth, but it was nice because everything happens for a reason. I missed New York so much. So it was like really great that I got to see my friends in that first like couple years I was in LA. But like once that aired, it was like crazy because I still had the notifications on my Twitter and like it was from the premiere episode, my phone just was vibrating. Like I couldn't text anybody. I couldn't do anything. My phone was just vibrating with all these notifications. And I was like, oh my God. And then people were talking about it. And after like the second season, like I was getting recognized places when I wore my curly wig. So like it was a breakout. It was, I would say a hit. And people still, will talk about it to me. And it was like almost 10 years ago or 7 years ago. I don't know. But yeah. So then I started doing stand-up after that. Usually people do open mics, eat shit for a long time, and then get on book shows. So I had gotten Girl Code. And since I had like a little bit of notoriety, it was easy for me to get booked on shows. Right. And then I was also doing college shows and I was like, and I said no at first. I was like, well, I don't do stand up. That seems weird. And my manager at the time, thankfully was like, I think you should just like frame your characters as stand up bits. And, he's like, it's like leaving money on the table. They're putting money down. It's easy. It's an easy grab. And you're saying no. And I was like, well, I don't want to do bad shows. He's like, they won't be bad. They like you. And I was like, oh, okay. And I really didn't understand that. And my friend Emily Heller, who's a phenomenal stand up, was at my first show at Rutgers. And I was like, you should close. And she was like, no, they're here for you. They like you from TV. Honestly, Nicole, just like be you. They'll like it. They want to see you. And she was right. I did not tell very good jokes, but they liked them because I was telling them. And then when I got back to LA, I realized I was like, oh, shit. So that show may have gone well. And it was like the third stand-up show I'd ever done. And I did a half hour. And I was like, and I like labored over that half hour. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But when I got back to LA, I was like, oh, okay. So I need to like do shows in between these college shows because I think there's a grace period. I think people will be forgiving into a certain point. So then I was like, I have to get good. So then I would like I would do like shows every night of the week when I was in LA. And I would go on the road and I'd be doing like, it was just, I did a lot of work to get good at stand up. And I'm proud of what I've done. But a lot of people put in the work and then it's like smooth sailing. Mine was like, well, I put in the work. I got this job. Now they want me to do something else. And I have to figure out this something else they want me to do. And then I have to get good at it. So
Not,
it was
unlike
weird.
The podcasting too. It's like you're being almost asked to go in this different direction, and then you got to just work to get good at it.
Yeah.
And sort of master it.
Yeah.
And then keep pushing yourself, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, because I could have been a person who was like, great, I'm getting booked on these shows and I'm on the road, so I don't have to do the book shows in LA because like I'm easy breezy on vacation, whatever. And then like not get better and keep taking the money and then being bad. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can make a choice to like not put in the work. I just chose to put in the work because I was just like, if anyone came to my show and they were like, ugh, you're not as funny as you are on TV, I'd be devastated. I'd be like, oh no.
Right. It's, yes. But a lot of like artists who were really pounding the pavement, they're pounding the pavement every waking moment. It's 24/7.
Yeah. My mother told me, she was like, you can be anything. I was like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And she was like, well, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. You just have to be the best at it. And I remember I thought I was real smart. I was like, what if I want to be a prostitute? And then there's nothing wrong with sex work, but like I was 10 years old at the time. So like that was out of pocket. And my mother looked at me and she goes, then be the best one out there and make all the money. And that stuck with me because I was like, yeah, no matter what I do, I have to be the best at it and make all the money. So it stuck with me. A lot of things my mother said stuck with me. She also said it takes more energy to frown than it does to smile. So yeah, I try to stay cheerful, keep a smile on my face. Yeah. Smiling
and being the best prostitute, I feel like that like is the amalgam of who you are now. It's like the two.
I like that.
Put those together
I do.
And there you are. Yeah, totally. Well, this is all great. Thank you so much. Do you have, what is the other advice? What is the other advice for maybe the more like scripted acting side of things? Is that a separate
sure.
hat?
Learn your lines.
Okay.
Because once you learn your lines, not only does the day move faster, but you can play. Like if the 2 people in the scene, 3 people in the scene, however many people, if everyone knows their lines, that means your marking rehearsal goes faster. That means let's shoot the rehearsal because we know our lines. That means we've shot the rehearsal. We've shot, enough of whatever. When we go into like close-ups or whatever, maybe you get to play a little bit. Because it's like, if you don't know your lines, we need to get them clean. But if you know them, you can play. And then maybe some other comedy will come from that. You just feel more at ease when you know them. Also, ask for more money. If they offered you $10, that means they probably have 20 to give you. And if you are offered 10, you ask for $20. You can settle on $15, $16, $17, $18, which is more than the 10 they offered you. Also, if you're a woman, find out how much your male co-star is making. You should be making the same thing if you were doing the same amount of work. And I say that like no matter what your star status is, because if you're in the same room with them, that means you earned your spot in that room with them.
Exactly.
Never be grateful to be at the table. You earned your place at the table, so ask to be paid adequately.
Yes. I don't think we've ever heard that piece of advice before because it's really true especially for early career. You've booked the role, but you still don't feel like you belong there and that you have the right to ask for something.
Yes, but like if you have the job and you haven't been fired after a table read, that means you earned your spot. That means they want you there. And I mean, your deal's probably it's closed before the table read or whatever. But like, just know that you earned it. If you didn't earn it, it would have gone to somebody else. If they didn't want you, it would have gone to somebody else. So ask for the money that you deserve. Like, I think a lot about Michelle Williams getting paid a per diem to do reshoots, and Mark Wahlberg, a man who attempted to kill a Vietnamese man and has a very racist past, getting so much money. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? I was like, how did her representation not ask how much he was making on a reshoot? And then also I was like, you make money on a reshoot? That's wild. I mean, to me, I was like, I thought that's just like what you owed to the project or whatever. But like, always ask for more. If it's a reshoot, ask if people are getting paid. If it's press stuff, ask what are the accommodations that somebody else is getting. Make sure you are getting the same treatment as everybody else. There is no reason to be treated like dog shit when somebody else is being treated like an escargot. That's fancy, right? I don't know.
That's fancy, right? No, that's so true. That's so spot on. Like the Michelle Williams thing, I'm really glad that came to light, and that there was just it was a little bit of a wake up call, I think, of like, oh, all these things that people, I guess women, did not know that they were allowed to ask for, and are allowed to ask for it. And
then it's like, think about Michelle Williams. Now think of a Black woman. She probably didn't even get a per diem.
No.
You know, like the Black woman, she didn't get a per diem. She didn't get, housing. She probably had to put herself up for these reshoots. This is like hypothetically. The Latinx woman, like I'm sure she was like, no money is being offered to these people.
Totally.
And it's like, if Michelle Williams is getting treated like that, like women of color are getting treated even worse. Definitely. So always ask for more. That's truly what I say. Ask for more. And then sometimes you have to be okay with like something going away when they say no. And you're like, well, this is way under my worth. And then sometimes you do have to make a choice. You're like, all right, they've said no. They still want to pay me, 2 potatoes and a smile. Do I want that? Is that okay with me? And
maybe it's a no.
Then, if you do a great job, you can use that as leverage on your next project.
Sure.
Or, they only want to pay you this amount, then great. Next season, I get to renegotiate. Yeah. You get that caveat put in. Like, try to cover your bases so you don't get fucked over for years.
That's excellent advice. And what's helpful there is to have that other point of data of like knowing what, for example, your co-star is getting. And you can just ask. Can you ask the co-star?
I mean, I think that puts people in a weird position, unless you're friends. Then it's like, reach out, ask.
Yeah.
But I think you have representation for a reason. So ask your reps to ask their reps. And I don't think anyone's like, no, I'm not telling you. Sometimes people's salaries are printed like on deadline. So like, people's deals are printed. A lot of things are public. So, and people love to talk. So have your reps do the work for you. That's what they're there for.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. There is so much there. Thank you for going there with me. I really like having candid conversations about that. And on my list to tell you about, pretty sure the first time I ever saw you was in a video. This was years ago. I'm pretty sure it was UCB of Be Blacker. And
yes,
do you remember this?
I wrote that because I had an audition for Nestle. The commercial exists. I booked it. But it was Nestle I shot the commercial in Romania. They flew me economy, and it was the most luxurious thing I had done to date. They give you free wine when you leave the country, and I didn't know. I was like, can I have more? And she was like, you can have as much as you want. And I was like, oh my God, the luxury, Lufthansa, come through. But I like went and, so the audition, my other friend was also auditioning for it. And like during my audition, the lady was like, okay, I did it. And she goes, okay, so now do it again. Be as black as possible. And if you she said, if you go too black, I'll bring you back. And I was like, what does that mean?
Too black?
Yeah. And what she meant was she wanted me to be like, no, with like neck rolls and snapping and be like, no, girl. So that's what I did because I was like, I don't know. I'm a nobody. And then my friend went to the callback and she was like, yeah, she lined 5 of us up in a room, showed us your audition tape and was like, do that. And I think it's because I was like the choice, but they needed more choices. I don't know. But I was like, this is wild. Then I got to Romania and the director was like, can you say some vernacular from your people? And I was like, what? He was like, call him son or whatever. And I was like, okay. That feels weird, but like, okay. So like the commercial is truly a caricature of Black people. And am I proud of it? Right. Yes. Because I got to go to Romania, baby.
Well, what a perfect like backstagey story. Like it's early career. Of course, you're going to say yes to all of this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Because you kind of have to play the game till you don't have to play the game.
Exactly.
And that's like another thing you have to like understand. It's a very weird industry to navigate. But when I got there, so like I'm flying around. And the stunt guy was this beautiful man with beautiful eyes. And he was like, hello, it is nice to meet you. And I was like, oh, thank you. He was like, we found the biggest man we could find to see if we could fly him in the harness. You are bigger than him, but we think it is sturdy. And I was like, I feel welcomed. Thank you so much. I was there for like 4 days. It was so wild.
That is
I was
so wild.
literally the biggest person in Romania. Like layflies, like I was the tallest, widest person anyone had ever seen.
You.
Also, I was like the only Black person there at that time. People stared at me everywhere I went. I was like, this is wild. It was fun though. Wow. I had a good time.
Well, because that's the thing about that what's striking about the Be Blacker sketch video is that in the audition, it's you're playing this person. You're taking the direction really well. Like the director's giving, it's really racist. Its direction is racist. And you are doing it. Like you're doing it well. You're responding to, you're upping the character in a really,
because that's what you have to do if you want to work.
Because you know how to do that. Exactly.
And I tried to write the lines in the scene to be as mundane as possible, to be like, well, why is she Black? So I think the line is, LaShonda, did you get those clams I asked for? Yes! Which is so weird.
So weird.
It's the weirdest line.
You get a clam and you get a clam. My friends and I would quote this video. Yes.
It's a very silly video, but yeah, that's what it is auditioning for some people.
We might, when I write this episode of this podcast up, I might have to include that video because it really is emblematic of Backstage auditioners. I think the Backstage user can really relate to that experience, maybe especially Black women who maybe have gone through something similar.
Yeah, and it's weird to like talk about it because I'm like, there are some Black women who do sound that way. And there's some Black women who don't sound that way. I think the word is monolithic. The Black experience is not monolithic.
Totally.
It would be nice to see other people represented. That's why I think shows like Insecure are super important, because I feel like Issa sounds like me. And then like also like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Hilary Banks sounded like me. Lisa Turtle sounded like me. So like it was cool. It was cool to grow up and have those people. And I just wonder, like, do kids have that now? I don't know.
Right. And like you're saying, it does come down to who's behind the camera, because we can see who's on the camera. That part's easy to gauge the representation there. But if it's white people writing the part for the Black characters, it's problematic, just to say the least.
Yeah. And it's like when you have your token, Black person in the room, that's like a whole nother conversation, because you have your diversity hires where they're free to the network. And then once they're not free anymore, they don't hire them because then they become more expensive because they've now, surpassed staff writer. Now they're like a co-producer. It's like a whole weird system of like a different system of oppression. It's really interesting if you like break it down. Yeah.
And it's sort of a game. Like it's a game you have to play, right? That you have to learn the rules and which battles to pick, like you're saying. Like I love this advice about, particularly when it comes to pay, of deciding within yourself and weighing the pros and cons of like, should I walk away? Because sometimes it's better for you, it's better for everyone if you draw a line and say, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to accept that. Yeah. But we can't all afford to do that. And it just depends on
and like that sucks. I think it's Lucy Liu is like, it's nice to have fuck you money to go, you've now lowballed me. You don't seem like, I know my white co-star is making X amount more than me, but I'm not doing it. Fuck you. I have the money to say that. And that's what I mean by playing the game till you don't have to. Yeah. Play the game, get your money. Yeah. And then when you feel like someone's disrespecting you, like it just, no, not until you pay me what I'm worth.
It's so good to hear. I really, I think that is key for women, for people of color, for any minority in this industry, to hear that exact advice. So thank you. Because like you're saying, it's a weird industry.
It's a bizarre industry because like I have a lot of gay friends who will be like, oh, well, it's gay time. It's me and all the gays and we're being asked to be as gay as possible. Gay time. It's like, wear a scarf and be like, honey, I don't think that matches. My friend Brandon Scott Jones is in this movie with Rebel Wilson called Isn't It Romantic? Yeah. And he plays like a stereotypical gay person and he does it. So it's so funny. I'm like, everything he does in the movie is everything that people are asked to do in auditions. There it is, like, right? It's so almost meta funny. Commentary. It's so meta in a way where I'm like, truly only actors of color and queer actors understand this. Yes, to playing the game. It's both depressing and inspiring, empowering. Yeah, to hear this, I think. I hope so. I hope so too. And then also Nicole, it's like create your own shit. That's like another thing. Thank you so much for having me. What a treat. Oh my God. No, this is pure gold. Can I ask you a couple of very backstagey
questions?
Sure.
Rapid fire backstage questions. First of all, how did you get your SAG card? Do you remember?
Oh my God, I was a must join. Because you have to pay into the union and I didn't have any money. And I
Yes.
think it might have been some voiceover stuff because I think I joined when, I think I was AFTRA and then became SAG.
Yeah.
And I think I had done a couple of voiceover stuff. I think it might have been 30 Rock. I was a must join. They were like, you have to join before you can shoot this.
On your IMDb, it looks like 30 Rock is your first like televised appearance, which is crazy.
It is. Yeah, I got to be. People were like, we were on 30 Rock. I was like, well, I was in the tag of an episode of 30 Rock.
The tag.
But I was elated. It was very cool. Tina Fey was so nice. Beth McCarthy Miller was the director, and I was like, oh, female director, cool. And I was like, this must be the norm. And I quickly found out that that's not the norm. But I have gotten to work with some solid female directors, and it's great.
Yeah, amazing. What would you say? This is maybe actorly, but it could be in the world of comedy. What is one performance that every aspiring performer should see or should study?
Oh, wow. Daniel Kaluuya. That's such a hard name for me. His performance in Queen and Slim is really, really great.
It's so good.
His performance in Get Out is really great. And I think Get Out is a perfect movie because everyone is playing such different things in the movie. And it's fun to watch because like Rel is in a different movie. Like Rel is
totally.
It is comedy.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. And then everything else is so like dark and stuff. But then when it comes together, it mixes so well.
It shouldn't work. Yeah.
No, and it works so well. So like, I think everyone has seen Get Out, but like, it's honestly worth a rewatch.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ghost is another one like that Ghost is my favorite movie where Whoopi Goldberg, all of her lines are so funny. And as a kid watching it, I was like, oh my God, she gets to be so funny. I loved it. And everything else is like pretty dark. And I said to a friend, I was like, Ghost is one of the best romantic comedies of our time. And she was like, it's not a romantic comedy.
Sure.
But I think everyone's performance, again, everyone is doing very different things and it comes together in such a beautiful way. What else? I'm a very big Whoopi fan.
Literally signed into Zoom as her.
Yes.
Have you met her?
Once, briefly.
Okay.
All of the Fast and Furious movies are a watch because you get to watch people commit to the silliest things. Yeah. And committing can go so far to sell something. Like in Fast and Furious, I think it's 8, Fate of the Furious, The Rock is like holding a helicopter whilst like on a moving car, and he's like, "Arr!" And you're like, no, this would never happen. But like, he doesn't take you out of the fantasy.
Right. Yeah.
What else?
God, that's a great example.
Yeah, I think anything like
you can still study the acting in that.
Yeah.
Like that's commitment.
Yeah, like committing it really can get you everywhere.
It's hard. Yeah. That's great. Okay. So the question we also ask is, what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time? And I have to tell you, Maya Rudolph was just on this podcast, and we haven't talked about your book. Maya Rudolph said in answer to this question, after this full interview where she gave all this serious craft and career advice, she said the advice she would give her younger self is she wished she had taken more pictures of herself in a bikini. Oh. And I was like, Nicole Byer is doing that.
Yeah, I honestly think more people should just chill the fuck out about their bodies. It's your body. Yes. You can change it if you want. Some people cannot. I understand there's limitations for some people, but then it's just like, accept it. If you can't change it, accept it. If you can't change it, you literally can't change it. What's the point of being upset? But I think the thing I would tell my younger self is truly everything really does happen for a reason. It will work out. And there's no need to feel like you're in competition with other women, Black or not Black. There's room for everybody, and you'll be okay. You don't have to fight so much. It goes back to what your advice about what did you say? Keep your eyes on your own paper? Yes. That's the advice. Yeah. Keep your eyes on your own paper. That's great advice. Thank you. Nicole, this is really lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Envelope is recorded at Lotus Productions and Hyperbolic Audio in New York City, and Soundbox LA, Mark Grau Studios, and Buzzies in Los Angeles. Thanks as always to our producer extraordinaire, Jamie Muffett, and to the team at Backstage, Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Casey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage by using the code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. That's right, 100% free. For more exclusive content, join us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who would you like us to interview next? Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another glimpse in the envelope.